Okay, you guys, I am here with Ricardo Calvário. Oh, okay, you say it for me.
Ricardo Calvário.
He is a researcher, a writer, and brilliant mind, and a YouTuber. Like, he's a person that you need to check out. That's who Ricardo is. Okay, so this is your second time on the show. Hello, hi. So what have you been working on since the last time we talked here?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me once more. And since then, I've been following more or less the articles and the subjects that been coming up. And I went to do a deep after we had the talk. I had a deep dive into what Atlantis might be, but only from an academic point of view. I'm not interested in the place itself to say it is here. I wanted to see what the existing data would lead me. That's all I wanted to do, and expose the data so each one can take its own conclusions. And after that, I did what I thought was very interesting to me, research on the moon, where I found things that I was not expecting. Although I have been amateur astronomer for many years, at least until my friends broke all my telescopes. I have none right now. They broke them all. And I discovered things that I never expected to find. And after that, I've been again back to my beginnings in the war against the evolution since the last information. Now they are pushing forward this idea that Homo nadeli, as they call it, is a descendant and it's deep buried, is dead, and from the findings from the Rising Star Cave. And once again, I think that they are faking it. They changed the morphology of the skeleton. They found the bones in places that are very far apart for it to be considered a burial, but they ignore it. They are linking this Homo nadeli with the marks that academically are known as the devil claw, that are some scratches in the walls that make straight lines that can be like I don't know if you have that game. We here have a game that's we do
tic-tac-toe.
6 lines and then we put the ball and the cross, and the one that can make 3 balls or 3 crosses in the line wins the game. So
tic-tac-toe, it's what we call
some
it.
of these drawings look like that, and I've been following that data for the last few weeks and finding that what magazines and official historical reports are telling are not in the slightest in accord with what the research actually says. But it's all yet again, it's another propaganda to promote this Homo evolution thing that we descend from some type of inferior creature but morphological.
So what do you think that's about? Like, I mean, okay. And first of all, I loved your moon videos. Like, they were like, you really broke it down for everybody in the existing theories on how the moon was supposedly created or how that happened. And so we'll get into that in a little bit.
Sure.
Which I really loved. Evolution. What do you think was really going on? And why do you think this is like, tell me, like, give me a paraphrase for people who are just coming from this from the first time, don't have anything, like, walk us through like what we're being told and what you're thinking and what's not adding up.
Okay, so if we go back to the beginning and start looking at the Lucy, that was the Australopithecus that was found in South Africa, and that started it all the process of, Darwin was right. It's clear to everyone that knows a little bit of morphology of the human body. So what we see is this: that they took Lucy, the Australopithecus, that was the first time they did it, and they placed the shoulder bones much higher than the real creature would be. They push all the bones of the arm up, and they make the skeletons look like this, so that the arms don't go below the knees, and we start to see an ape instead of seeing a normal like creature. So this was a trend that was followed ever and ever again since they found. To me, we start our history perhaps with Homo erectus, perhaps, or similar. There are very types of Homo erectus. That, funny enough, was a better walker, a better runner than us. It was morphologically better prepared to run and to walk than we are. And from then up, you have the Neanderthals, you have the Denisovians, you have the Clovis, you have lots of other types of Homo that I think are really Homo and have an independent origin. So I usually use this because someone told me on Twitter when I was talking about this, oh yes, but polar bears came from brown bears. No, they didn't. Polar bears is a type of bear that was always a polar bear, and the brown bear is a type of bear that was always a brown bear. They could have micro-evolved in some way, but they have always been what they were. It's not like when you have the extinction of the megafauna, meaning all the animals that were above 120 pounds, the animals that we have now are not the result of the adaptation of the evolution of the animals that were. The animals that were became extinct because they consume a lot more food that stopped being available during the LGM and then with the catastrophes of the Younger Dryas and so on. So what remained were the animals that were in an habitat that could sustain their needs, and those are smaller animals. That's why we don't, for instance, there was, if I'm not mistaken, at least 6 types of proboscideans or elephants in the United States. We don't have none right now. So there were more elephants in the United States than we have now in any other place in the world. In Africa you have one, in India you have one. So my point is this: evolution only happens at a micro level. You don't have
yeah. So you believe in
animals.
adaptation, I suppose.
Yes. Like the Homo we see today, in my point of view, is the result of those that survived these catastrophes, and some way or another, those that didn't kill one another but for being different have the ability to breed between one another, and that's we end up with what we have today, with perhaps some exceptions of some very old uh, uh, types of human. That this is a very sensible topic because people will start to think this is racist or something like that. But there are some types of Homo today that we look at them and see that their ancestry has not passed from the same type of interbreeding that other humans, the most of humans today have, especially those that are more isolated. Um, as for so concluding, evolution to me, as presented, it's not a reality. It's just another type of agenda from the academic community, not the academic community, because like in the case of the moon, what I see is that not even scientists and academics know exactly why the things that they believe in are like that or where they came from. They just repeat one another's theories. They evolve those theories, so you never get to any new conclusions, because if they come up, they are not accepted by the community, and they are put down. So with catastrophic results for their careers for those who pursue it.
Well, and I always, it's like, like Denisovans and stuff. It's like in the Syria cave, they found a knuckle.
And
Like
then they
knuckle
build the
bone.
whole body. Yes.
They did find a whole body.
No, and then they build the whole body
Oh, and
from
then they
a
build a
thumb.
whole. I was gonna say, like, as far as I know, there was like a knuckle found, and you're kind of going, what? Um, I don't know. I feel like that with all the missing link stuff, there's a lot of liberties taken.
And money going from hand to hand, and
Okay, so
tourism is created.
but like if we backtrack it, what are the two options? It's like either you're a creationist and you think that God did this all, or you are an evolutionist, or I mean, like, and what's what are the other possibilities? And like, what else is going on here?
The other possibilities is, to me, the right answer is to take the best of the two series, combine them, and then you understand that that must be a creation, right? Because humans are so different from whatever other animal we consider on this planet. And we realize that there must be a point of origin. And if we exclude the macroevolution scenario, what we keep is the fact that those that were created then intermingled and then resulted in what the species we see today, with so many variations. That's why we can see who are the Spanish, who are the Africans, and what type of Africans we are seeing. For instance, Africans can recognize themselves from the region itself. They look at people and say, oh, you're from Guinea. Oh, look, you are from Angola. Oh, look, you are from Zimbabwe. You see, they know exactly where they are from just by looking at one another. So it's like in my country, I know who's the people who is from the north, who's the people who's from the south. It's kind of distinguishable who they are, either by their culture, by their manners, by their look, by their. It's easy to identify. Let's put it this way. I don't know if
Not
that
so
happens
easy in the US.
because the U.S. it's a very recent country, and it's made from immigrants because the ones that were there were obliterated basically,
Yep.
and kept on in reservations under subhuman conditions and eradication of culture, so that they don't remember one day who they were and that the country was theirs, and
Yep.
perhaps was someone else's before they got there. So it's all a cycle basically.
So do you think like, okay, so then what do you think is going on with I mean, for me, I feel like if you look at, even if you go back to like the Cambrian pyramid or period, and you have tons of ammonites, and you have like all these kind of brachiopods and these kinds of fossils, and then you go into like there's completely different, like the Stegosaurus is further away from the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is closer to us than the Tyrannosaurus Rex is the Stegosaurus. And they never coexisted in the same time frame. And there's this whole thing where, or supposedly, whatever. And I mean, I've been into dinosaurs for a really long time, but even when you like look at the megafauna and you start looking at the stuff like the woolly mammoths, like we were talking about and everything before, like the last ice age, it really feels like there are, the world is just some sort of science experiment where they have like all kinds of different creatures, and then they're like, all right, cool, let's reset everything and put a whole new species in of all kinds of stuff. All right, that was fun. Reset again, new stuff. Okay, fun. Reset again, new stuff. So I don't know. But then I also think that we're dealing with, like what do we make of legends of fairies and dragons and gnomes and elves and giants? And like, are these all to be dismissed as nothing when you really start looking at the bones? You're getting, like I said, you get a knuckle, or even with dinosaur bones, there's very few full skeletons that have ever been found. I mean, they have some, sure, but they're not like most of the time, just like with the little knuckle thing, they get a femur bone and a toe and a claw and like one vertebrae or something, and then they make this giant thing out of it. And a lot of it's make believe stories. Like it just kind of is. So, so what's the agenda? Like, I don't understand what the agenda is. And
let me put it this way. Imagine a boundary on that record where things stop to be naturally evolving and recycled by natural catastrophes. And from that point on, they seem to be organized, placed with intent, with an objective, with a purpose. And I point that at whatever. First of all, I don't buy any of these dates, and I'm not saying they're fake or they're true. I just say I don't buy these dates. But let's put the end of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, okay, in Chicxulub. Let's put it that way. And although I don't believe it, I think dinosaurs lived well beyond that, or that catastrophe is much more recent than they say it to be. But let's put it that way. Until then, what I believe happened is, and that is that creation that we talked just now, it's done by objects like Oumuamua. Do you remember Oumuamua?
The
Okay.
comment that came in and then.
Okay, I think Oumuamua is a fine example of what a life-seeding probe is. And that will lead us to panspermia, and there are several variations from that. And I think that all that life that we see on the fossil record of the Earth is a part of those recycles caused naturally by those objects that came and recycled the planet with new forms of life that sometimes obliterate other forms of life. The proper impact of that object causes the one extinction and promotes another type of existence. It reformulates the atmosphere, the airs that are available to breathe. It enriches the planet with some minerals and takes another ones by evaporation. And there was a time when it ceased to be natural and began to be intentional, and that's where the moon comes in my point of view. And from that point on, we couldn't have. Imagine you want to rule a place, and to rule it, you have to have people that do the hard work. Let's put it that way. They will have the hard work, they will have the perspective of entertainment, they will have the perspective of pleasure, let's not deny it, and they will have the task of reproducing themselves and multiply themselves in order to keep providing the necessary numbers to keep that kingdom in motion. So what you need to do is eradicate the threats to that very workforce. And you couldn't have the animals that there were on the earth, like dinosaurs, like the famous one from I can't remember the name right now. The smaller one, the raptors.
Oh, the raptor, yeah.
The raptors. No, there was an infamous amount of animals that would make amends even of a very strong human. So they had to be eradicated. A new world had to be created where the new to be created man could live and multiply itself in more or less safety conditions. So the world was reformulated. The dinosaurs were taken down. Not all. I think there are the reports that we have from the 18th century of photographs,
yeah.
For instance, that animals that would be very hard to eradicate because they could fly 1,000 kilometers and find food in the sea and so on. So it would be very difficult to eradicate them all. But it's logical they would eventually die for lack of pairs to reproduce themselves. So from that point on, I think it stopped being natural and it began to be unnatural. It began to be engineered, and that's where we come in. And
so I heard you talk about I read your
the slavers and the teachers.
Yes, the slavers and the teachers. So let's go into so walk us through the Archon concept and how there was a war and we lost and how we're here now. Like explain.
I think this when we combine myth, legend, and history, we find that they are not indistinguishable. They all speak of the same narrative. They all point in one direction, and that was what led me to try and write the Helix Tree, where I built a cosmology that tries to explain, fictionally or not, tries to explain how we came to be here and why we live in such dominated world where we think we are free when actually we are not free. I don't believe in free will because we are what we are. There is no free will. We have no choice really because our choice was already made by who we made ourselves to be. So although we think we ponder things, our solution is exactly the one that would be if we have not the ability to think of what we are going to do. So there is no real free will in the world. But what I mean is this: what I believe is that humans are not supposed to be, and like in the Bible, and like in many other texts, be them mythological or religious, even in Tolkien, I think what happens constantly is that those that should have the part of shepherding life, it's shepherding is like
Shepherding, yeah, like leading, maybe.
the one that leads the sheep. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's a shepherd.
A shepherd. Okay. So I think there are beings that have they are physical and were the original Adams, if you will, whose part was only to shepherd life, to nourish it, to see it grow, to see if there was something that might injure it, and try to modify using the very nature of the energies of the cosmos and the planets to mold it to give fruition to life. And that life would be the channel that I call the global awareness that connects the the cosmos itself into one consciousness that we are part of. Mm-hmm. So what happens to me is that one of those entities decided, as often like the devil and many other characters, decided to create, as he was created in the first place, someone that he puts tasks to do. And so those shepherds, those Archons, created man with intent of being themselves the rulers and not the ruled by the ones that created them that are not physical. Okay. So I think because of that, they lost their place, their galaxy, if you will, and trying to flee from it, they eventually end up here. And why I say they end up here, because we don't know any other place that has intelligent life. It's easy to presume that there is life in 99% of the universe, but it's hard to conceive that there is intelligent life in the remaining universe. So that's why I'm placing them here. So I think that is connected to the destruction of Phaeton, that was the planet that Nikki and I existed between Mars and Jupiter. When Phaeton was destroyed by their entrance into the solar system by the gates that existed in that planet exploded. It destroyed the homeland of the shepherds that existed.
They call that Maldoc or something. Is that the name of that?
Yes, there have many names. They have many names for it. But astronomy had given it a name before it gives up on it, and the name that astronomers gave it was Phaeton. It's Phaton.
Yeah, Phaeton.
So the destruction of that planet caused the loss of the city where the shepherds of our solar system lived. That was Sidonia. That was discovered by Richard Hoagland. Not discovered by Richard Hoagland, but investigated deeply by Richard Hoagland.
Sidonia is in Mars, like
is in Mars. Yeah. It's where we find the DNM pyramid. It's where we find the face.
Yeah.
And many constructions around it. So parts of Phaeton impacted Mars, destroyed most of its atmosphere. So it's impossible to remain there. It was the obvious planet to create life. This because, as science tells us, the Earth without a moon was a place where life could not evolve beyond a minimal point, because the rotation was too fast, the winds were too fast, the weather is completely unpredictable and tempestuous. So imagine a world in constant lightning and constant storm, basically. So beyond what destroyed, there is a place in America that was destroyed in 2000. Is that it? It's still being rebuilt. I don't know the name. Imagine that 10 times full, constantly in the place. So it's very hard for life to evolve on a planet like that. So in the impossibility of using Mars, they decided to use the Earth. To do that, you need something that stabilizes its axis. You need something that slows it down. You need something that corrects its trajectory, and you need to basically terraform the planet in order for it to sustain life. And I think that was done with the moon. And the moon is also what I think that entered by the portal that eventually destroyed Phaeton. So
Okay, so walk us through the moon real quick now that we're on the moon.
now, the moon. What I found about the moon is this. Science believes that the moon, and now completely out of fiction, not only speak about what science thinks of the moon. The moon is think to have 16.6% of Earth's gravity. It thinks to have a very low surface factor gravity, the meaning that on the moon they think the moon has a density of 64%, but the gravity is only 16.6 of the Earth, meaning when we calculate the other planets that we know, we should think that the moon has 60% of the density of the Earth, so it should have around 60% of the gravity of the Earth because of the density that it has. So in reality, it has even more than the density. It has 64% of the surface factor gravity of the planet Earth. Why is this important? Well, first of all, it's responsible for the failures that we saw in all the missions to the moon, because they were calculating the neutral point, that is the distance when a ship goes from the Earth to the moon. We have to know exactly, and I mean exactly, where the neutral point is, because it's where the ship stops being braked by the gravity of the Earth and starts to be attracted by the gravity of the moon. So if you don't know that, you don't know how much fuel you need to stop the craft, and you don't know what speed the craft is going to obtain before it impacts the moon. And they set that neutral point based on that 16.6 idea of gravity, of surface factor gravity of the moon. That's why they failed. It's only when they started adopting the real value that was never divulged. I only found it in two very obscure statements, one from Werner von Braun, another from the Institute of Superior Astronautics, that they mentioned the distance where the ship stopped being slowed down by the Earth and started accelerating. And that's through that distance.
So is that the end of low Earth orbit?
No, lower orbit is something more closer to the planet, like used by satellites. We are talking at about 23,000 miles from the moon. That's the value of the 16.6 gravity factor, when in reality it was more close to 43,000 miles from the moon, no, from the Earth. So it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. So considering that the moon was much closer to the planet Earth than it is now, because it's going away 1.5 inches or something like that per year. It's going further from the planet Earth. If we
They say that, but then if that's the case, like why is the tidal lock so precise? Meaning like why do we not get any slight rotate, even with an inch? Like why do we not get any slight rotation? If I'm 40, that should be 40 inches. That's that's a couple of feet. Like why shouldn't we start to see a little bit different face in the tidal lock? You know what I'm saying? Like
you shouldn't ask those questions.
that's apparently that's the case. Everything
you
about
shouldn't ask those questions. See, that's why no one questions this surface factor gravity of the moon. It's not questioned by anyone. If you remember, there was this year, I think, there was a private mission to try to hit the moon, a spaceship from private hands that tried to reach the moon. And imagine that you're going to invest billions of dollars in something this extraordinary to do. And obviously you get the experts, the best men on the job to do this. And although beyond that, and still they didn't knew that the moon has not 16.6%. They believed it has 16.6%, and they failed. They smashed completely because they were too fast to stop the craft, because they kept accelerating for too long, because they didn't take this value. This value does not exist in the books. It exists only on those two citations given by Barnard and Brown, and from this institute that corroborated Barnard and Brown data. It's nowhere else. In no book, no scientist will tell, no astronomers that I know or have I read will tell you this, that I'm saying, that the moon has 64% of surface gravity factor. Because this changes the whole thing. Because if you put the moon slightly closer from the Earth, with the notion that we have today about gravity, it would be catastrophic. So the question that we put on forward is that gravity must not be what we think it is, or at least it's not what science thinks it is. Because if so, when the moon was going round, the axis would go around with it and not take those whole years to make the changes in the axis. See what I'm saying? It's too strong a connection. So the link must be different. It's like it must be something more like a tractor beam from Star Trek than something like gravity.
Well, I think the moon is the Death Star. You know,
I think the moon had the intent to. What I think they brought with them was their own species to colonize again. This guy that was the head of the revolution of the rebellion against the Pelf, that is the name I gave the creator, because it's physical beings with pure light beings with physical capability of interaction. So they are not material, but they can mingle with the physical side of nature.
That makes a lot of sense.
And they are the ones that created the stargates. They are the ones that created the star seeds, like the Oumuamua, the life probes. I think they are the creators of all of that, and they are not material, although they can influence material ways. And they are basically what in religion we see as the real gods, as the interdimensional beings. And we are led to believe that these Archons that we hear in our history, that they are the gods. They are not. They are physical beings. They may not age as we do, but they need to eat, they reproduce, and they are basically like us. There's not much difference.
Well, it's like it's like a little G God, you know, it's like the little G God wars,
yes.
Versus like overarching God of creation.
Yes, I agree with that. So the slavers and the teachers. I think the slavers are this group that came with the moon, okay? And I think the teachers were the ones that were heading here. So since the teachers were not on planet Earth, they took a long time to reach again. And when they did, the slavers have already dominated the planet, had already created human from, and this is how I think the humans came to be. The link between science and creationism is to use the best suited animal to the planet that has the capability of being bipedal, more or less like bonobos, for instance. Is plus today, I think the animal they would use would be a bonobo. Because a bonobo is an animal that has an amazing ability to learn. It can play computer games. It can cook on fire if taught to do it. It's amazing, but it's still a very limited animal, and it wouldn't get there alone. It means that you wouldn't expect for a bonobo to evolve to one day being building cars. It will never happen. So they took that, they mingled it with their own DNA, and they created humans that in reality are the how do you say it? Semi-gods? Demigods? No.
Demigods, yeah. We're little
Okay.
demigods.
So with this, they finally had a population that could sustain them, that could serve them, that could mine for them. Because I believe that in the beginning, they kept the idea that they intended to do in the first place, that was to return to the source. I don't think their intention was to ended up locked up in a solar system like ours and not being able to move from it. In fact, I also think that those that had the idea of reaching the source were lost during the process or sometime after they reached our planet, perhaps even destroyed by the teachers themselves. And that leads us to the War of the Gods that we read in so many places, like in Mahabharata, in legends from the Americas, and from the tales from the Norse people. It's the tale that everyone, the War of the Gods appears in every place, and those awesome weapons of energy and so on. So I think that, like you read yesterday, I think that everywhere where we see mass construction that is very evolved stylistically and made to sustain a large number of people, we are talking about the slavery. And when we see communities where everything is built from solid blocks of stone, that you don't see enormous amounts of place of agriculture, you just see sustainability. I think then we are talking about the teacher, like
so Peru would be teachers.
not all of it, but most of it, yes. Because I think each time they try to build a free society and teach humans to become their best, I think the slavers came in, started building around, and eventually would destroy them, or like they do today, like they have done ever since. Uh, like I've been discussing that,
So then
for
do you
instance,
think the Archons are gone?
no, I think there are very few left. And those few are desperately trying to keep control on things. And
Yeah, I definitely
perhaps
don't think they're gone. I don't know how many are or aren't, but yeah.
I think there is very few, and even fewer the teachers. I think the teachers, what they did was to try and spread their knowledge in ways that could enter the society. And so somehow I think they made something that makes some people uh, to be able to see a certain part of the code, put it that way. So it would be needed to put all those people together. They don't need to be many. And putting all those people together that see parts of the code, you'd have the perfect team to, in case of the structure of the society, like if imagine if you now are really going into a new reset, natural reset. There is a natural reset and there is the system reset. I think the system reset is preparing for the natural reset. Either it takes 10 years or it takes 500 years. From their desperate measure, it's quite close. So I think that those people would be the ones that once again we turn back to stone, because that's what they know that will stick, and that's what they know where they started. For instance, the nubs, for instance, I think that's all part of the code of those people that start, the teachers that start rebuilding societies in something that is not destroyed by time. They don't have great worries with stylization. So although I admire and think they are above everything else, the sculptures that you see in India, from quarrying the stone to achieve that amount of detail in the sculptures. They have chains made from
Right,
one
made
piece
of
of
stone.
stone. So I think that is beyond the teachers. Might not be entirely from slavers, but it's not a pure following of the teachers. When I think of the teachers, I think in when you see stone that can be polygonal, but it's still stone. It's not decorated with marvelous things that require high technology to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to I mean, either or, it's all somebody that's, uh, using something that we're not using currently. So what do you think? I mean, all this is like a cool game or something, but well, sometimes I even try to like go more macro and I'm like, what is this? What is this some sort of, are we in some simulactar? Like, are in some sort of matrix? Are we all one thing, a fractal of the all, like trying to, just I do entertain ourselves from nothingness. I mean, like what, like I still, I'm kind of going like, to what end does the story of what we're doing here mean? And are we in a space prison? Are we not in a space prison? Are we, like I get a little exhausted sometimes because I'm like, there's no way to really know what the truth is.
I think we were led since little kids to believe in certain things that limit our own existence. One of them is death.
Mm.
We are led to believe that we have to die, that have to grow old, because we are constantly fed with relatives dying because we forgot that they are dying because they also were programmed to believe in death and aging, and it's an also natural process to breed, to have children, and then to pass on to another dimension and leave those descendants carrying on the song, if you will. I
Hmm.
think that's just the first step, is to make humans believe that they are a creature that lives for a certain amount of years. And you can see that by, for instance, although I don't believe the very authors sometimes recognize what they are saying or the potential of it, but you have, for instance, Bruce Lipton, that encoded the biology of belief, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of his theory, where we command ourselves. So in regard to this, I wrote a piece that is called Concerning Consciousness, where I try to explain that we are not our bodies, and we are not something that is in our body. Our bodies are but suits, or biosuits that we have here experiencing this reality, and we are in command of these suits. No matter if the suits are enslaved or not, we are in command of these suits. It's more or less like an RPG game where we are
Yeah.
controlling a character, okay, in first person view. So only we are led to believe that we are that person, and we forget that we are in command of that body, and that body will accept our command, be it regeneration, be it healing, be it aging slower. Uh, and I think those that came closer to that truth are those people that are not a part of the slavers, because on the side of the slavers there are a lot of people that lived for 700, 800, 1,000 years. But there are some from the part of the teachers that gained that understanding and lived much longer than was expected them to live. In fact, some of them even got out of the scene because people could not accept them for their abnormality, let's put it that way. You have some in the Middle Ages, for instance. I'm terribly sorry I can't tell you the names because I can't remember them right now, but there are several characters from the Middle Ages that appear for at least a period of 400 years, and they are the same person. So and what they do is they appear from court to court, and they counsel, and they get paid, and they disappear from the scene, and then they come back again
Yeah, like Saint
to another
Germain.
place. For instance, there are several characters like that. Not all of them are positive. Not all of them are well intended. But again, good and
I
evil
also
is
think
just
that's the lore of the vampire.
the lore of the vampire. In my perspective, was demonized exactly for us to don't understand that. Because if you think that you're given life by a vampire by drinking his blood, what he is giving you is his knowledge. If you demonize it, you see a creature that is awful, that passes his blood to you, you drink his blood, and then you become immortal also, but also enslaved to that creature. If you break that apart, you can imagine that as being as receiving his knowledge of how not to die. But if we go to Vlad, what he really did was, I refuse myself to die. I refuse to accept your reality. And then you have Bram Stoker that grabs a love, how do you say it? Heartbroken from.
Heartbroken guy. Yeah.
Okay, the reason it was heartbroken, no, perhaps the reason was because he didn't want to die in the first place. He wanted to live. He understood that death was not a necessity, that he could carry on. And that story is continued, for instance, in The Immortals, that is much more recent. And yet it has the same motive. How do the Immortals came to be? They say they came from another planet. It was not very well explained. But they could only die if really hurt physically, cutting the head. And I think that the suit is if we think the suit as part of that existence, it's exactly what it happens. If you know how to regenerate yourself, and you're not a lizard, if you lose your head, you're gonna die. But if you lose an arm, if you get stabbed, you know how to heal, you will heal. So I think it's all a matter of understanding, really understanding, believing really that you do not need to age. You do not need to die. And with this, I completely lost what was your question in the first place because I lost myself in this part.
Well, I mean, like that's funny about the aging stuff too, because I mean, I've told this a lot before, but when I was 35, I had met this monk that had been in some kind of monastery his entire, well, since he was 18, and he was 55 at the time, and he said that he knew a lot of people that were 400 or 300, 400, 500 years old. And this guy was like, he wasn't just saying, like, he didn't watch TV, he didn't have a phone, he wasn't just like lying to me just to lie to me. And I was like, what do you mean you know people that old? And he was like, well, they just go into the cave when they're 50, and then they reverse engine, like he said that you can't go into the cave until you're 50 years old. When you're 50 years old, because you can reverse entropy up to 25 years, and then you can age back up. So he said you don't want to go below 25 years old, because that's when your brain matter's full, like that's when you're fully developed. So you don't want to go when you're 40 and go 25 years back and then be 15. Like that's gonna, like that's gonna mess up your internal, or it's gonna mess your body up. So he said you wait till you're 50 years old, you get into a cave, you spend 21 days in complete darkness, absolute complete darkness. And then it changes, it reverses the entropy within your cells to go backwards still, and then you come out in the light or whatever. They age backwards for 25 years, and then you age back up to 50. So every 50 years you go into the cave for 21 days. And I was like, well, what do you have to do? Do you have to like meditate? Like, do you have to do it? And he's like, well, I don't think it's anything about anything spiritual. It's just literally about like the mechanics of your cells having to be in complete darkness for 21 days. He's like, I think they took like, he's like, they would go together and they would take, like instruments, and they had food down there, and they had a way to go to the bathroom, and there would be like water in these kind of caves. But he's like, yeah. So, and whenever they feel like they've had their time, they just don't go back in the cave when they're 50, and they just age out and die.
Could it be that the cave was a place of power?
And that's what I was like, as it could darkroom technology work? And he's like, I don't know. I don't see why it couldn't. Like darkroom could, he's like, I don't think it has to be a cave. It's just what was available there for complete darkness. And um anyway, I don't know. I'm definitely interested in doing some darkroom technology, but like I would try a cave. I would try complete darkness for 21 days if I had like a party of people who were like, you know,
But
like
once
I don't.
again, is it not a technical belief? It's
It's a
like,
belief. You're right. It is a technical belief, but let there be light. Hello.
but it was there again in what you're saying. The emerging from the darkness into the light is like a birth from tomorrow. You see,
Yeah.
all these links. And I was expecting you to tell me that they have to bath in something like Jupiter ascending or something like
Yeah,
that.
no, I was like, well, do they have to say a certain meditation? Do they have to like eat like, pineapple leaves only and blended into, like some sort of apricot nut or something? No, nothing special like that. It was literally just being in the dark for 21 straight days.
Perhaps they don't know. Perhaps it's the water
Yeah,
that they
maybe
drink
it's
there, the energy of the cave. That's why I was talking about the place of power, for instance, that affect the DNA.
maybe it's the fountain of youth water they're drinking. Who knows? But
it's all chemistry. Our body, it's a chemical machine. So it might work by belief, by the fact that we control the body, or it might work for external
if there
mechanisms.
are, Jericho plants or the Rose of Jericho plant, which, is like basically, first of all, somebody else recently told me, don't say immortal. It was this like Gabby Zakara girl that I had on. She said immortal is like I am mortal. So like it's like a reverse engineered root word. You would say like I'm renewed, or like you like, because like what that really is, it's reaffirming that you actually are mortal. Like I'm mortal. So immortal
Interesting.
is one of those reverse spells that that is in our atmosphere to make it seem like it's an impossibility. So that's actually a bad word to use. I'm like, okay, cool, I won't use that word anymore. But like renewed, or rejuvenated, or perpetual, or whatever, some kind of other living forever sort of situation. But anyway, there's Jericho plants, there's immortal jellyfish, that's what they call them. I mean,
Yes.
there are plants and animals that exist that we like, that can reverse aging. Instead of going forward, they can get younger versus. So as long as you have one example of any person or anything or anything, then it's possible.
And
So
again, if you were able to regenerate your cells constantly or from time to time, you wouldn't be telling it to the world because the world would fall upon you. So these people that achieve that goal, it's a double-sided, a double-edged sword, because you can say, hey, look, world, I did it. This is how it's done. There's lots of people that would not like that. I'm sure of that. So
yeah,
it's
I obviously would tell the world if I knew, because I tell them whatever I do know. I can keep nothing a secret.
oh, but they would say, oh, it's Nikki. It's that crazy one from the YouTube channel.
Yeah, the unicorn. Like, yeah. She's crazy. Don't listen to her. So yeah, I would be the perfect person to tell you the secrets of of life, because then no one would listen.
There is an author. Its name is Anton Wilson. I don't remember the first name. I think it's Anton Wilson, but I can't remember the first name. He's constantly appearing in very weird places. Like I published in Rumble, where I put my database of videos. I published his videos recently. I have to edit it, the video, because the video starts with a satanic ritual, uh, and then I couldn't publish it. So not that the place didn't allow it, and I thought it would be too much for the people to see, so I have to cut the video to the place where he starts talking, and it's interesting to witness what people pay to go and see and participate, and then listen to a man like Anton Wilson. I can't remember the first name. I'm sorry. Uh, and he used to say the craziest things about our history and how control and who controls us. And at the end of each powerful phrase or at the end of each presentation, he would try to convince the people not to believe him because he's completely crazy. I'm just talking bullshit. Don't believe in anything that I say because he was afraid of the Archons and those in control. And somehow he was invited by those same Archons to these presentations. So it all very confusing and doesn't make very much sense. But that's how it was, like you were saying. He could say anything he wanted because he contradicted himself anytime, even in TV programs and things like that. You say the strangest thing that make all the sense to those that are trying to connect the dots, but just after saying it, no, don't believe me. I'm just completely crazy. I'm completely bonkers. So don't take anything that I say seriously.
You know, it's like with everything, I neither believe nor disbelieve pretty much anything. I just like I take in all information and consider it. Like I just am like, okay, well, that's an interesting perspective. That's an interesting perspective. Like I have it in my wheelhouse, and sometimes if something else is coming up, I'll be like, oh, well, that correlates with this thing, which correlates with this. I don't know what the ultimate truth is of anything, and I reserve the right to change my mind about
Exactly.
anything. So
Belief is this, is nothing else than this. Belief, it's only this.
it's, yeah.
So if from the point on that you gain a belief in something, you stop seeing the rest because you think you found the truth, you think you found the solution, and you stop looking. Even if you hear it, you wouldn't consider it because you think you already have the truth. That's why science fails. That's why religion fails, whatever it is,
Mhm.
because they think they are the ones that follow the path, the correct path, and they don't care for anything else. And well, they are the ones that lose because of it. So that's why I speak of the law of opposites, that is to believe in contradictory things at the same time. And belief is a dangerous word here. But
Yeah.
it's like believing that it's like the walls that surround me are white, but they are also the combination of all the colors that makes the white. Although I only see the white, so it's all there, but I could see it the white, or I could understand that white it's only there because I can't see the differentiation of the combination of all the colors, but they are there, and they are the real, not the white that I'm seeing. The white that I'm seeing is just the decoding of my brain, and then the transmission to my real self that it's not here physically, but it's like behind these eyes. Like if we focus enough, and I think this is what monks do and have difficulty to transmit to people, is you reach the point where instead of seeing how we see through the eyes, you start to see the holes of the eyes from where we are seeing reality. It's like you can back off from the perception of the signals that give you sight and start to see like a card box with two holes, and you can see the holes instead of the sight. If I'm not sure if I'm trying,
Yeah,
if
that
I'm
makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, like our sight is yet just another limitation of, of this game or this role-playing game. Uh
imagine a person that loses his sight, he gained hearing. So why didn't he gain hearing while he had the sight, right?
right, yeah. I mean, and that's what they
So
say. If
it's
you lose
it
one
was
sense,
always
lose your
there
soul.
with him. He could always gain increased hearing. He didn't need to lose his sight to gain increased hearing. It doesn't make sense because there is no new connections on the brain. It's the same connections on the brain. He's just using more those connections because he doesn't have the other ones. So if we train ourselves to use all the senses, at the same time, and not limiting, like you were saying, not limiting it because I'm seeing, I don't need to hear what it's doing because I already saw it and I know what it is.
Mm.
But if I don't see it and I have to identify it by my hearing, then I will concentrate on my hearing to identify what I'm seeing. So you have to teach ourselves not to be lazy in the terms of the senses. It's like, it's easy to do it in every day. It's like entering in a place and trying to figure out what's going on in the kitchen of a restaurant by the smell without seeing it. It's like trying to guess what's the daily dish by the smell. It's like trying to find out uh, who the person is by hearing its voice. For instance, it's harder to do, but it's possible. Trying to identify people by the energy they emit. We have all these senses and all this computer that's capable of translating all this input that we see into our true self that apparently is limited to a reality that is much more than it's visible. And then again, visible, we get back to the eyes. You see, we are locked by words. Our teaching limits ourselves because we are taught to speak in a certain way that conditions ourselves in our development and in our understanding of reality. If
Absolutely.
this is a reality.
So within this reality that we're agreeing upon to coexist in, what do you think, like, you know, all the jerk archons or whatever who made the last 2020 to 23, or at least 2022, like completely crazy? I don't think they're done, obviously. So do you think we're going to see like an even bigger show coming up, or what do you think's about to go down the pipeline of controlling?
No, I think the evil is done.
You think? Ooh, that'd be
No. And on this point, I think the evil is done, and that I don't want to ruin your channel. So uh, let's put it academically. Okay.
yeah.
I don't know if you
Well,
have
that's why
seen.
I didn't use like specific words
Let's
or
put it
cuss like
academically.
I would have normally.
There is a paper that analyzed 1,011 people's blood, and all those people have taken the same decision that, for instance, in my country, 99% of the people took. And we are speaking as children, pregnant women, elderly, young people, adults, everyone choose to do it on their own free will. Okay. So in this sample of 1,011 people, all of them had some sort of substance in their blood that isn't supposed to be there. And that substance, it's not only self-replicating in certain circumstances, as it is controllable by electromagnetic sources. Okay, so this is why I say, and I hope I was vague enough. Uh, this is why I say that the evil is done in this sense, because it's now on their hands to decide. Uh, Imagine a gas chamber from the Nazi world. They don't need the chambers anymore. They just need the antennas that they have for us to use our phones. So they are the best sources of electromagnetic energies. So all of these people are literally in their hands. Not only in their hands, but in the sun's hands, in the moon's hands, because we don't know what they are capable in terms of the electromagnetic energy. So if it's like a Thanos scenario, forgive me. So it's like they want to end 50% of the population, although I think they want to eliminate much more than 50%. And why they would like to do it? First of all, we become too many, not for the planet. I'm not an advocate of overpopulation. I think it's complete rubbish
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
even science says that we can't grow much more in numbers. Perhaps a few billion more, but then it reduces dramatically again because the
Resources.
it's natural. It starts with infertility. It starts with the problems, all the problems that come from living in heavily industrial societies, in enormous cities, in moving away from nature, because children today don't even know where fruit come from or what
Yeah.
is
Or
the
what?
form of the animal that they are eating. Uh, so I think that this depart from nature that is our source creates that very same. We grow in numbers, but we reach a point where we can't grow anymore. Naturally, we start diminishing, and then we grow again. So there will never be overpopulation if not externally assisted. Let's put it this way. And what they did now is they set a mechanism where they could take that decision. And my point here is that if we are seeing a natural reset, they must be ready to do a system reset, meaning that they have to select who's the ones who want to continue in their society, and they know that some will take the opportunity to remove themselves from society and go back to the roots. Not to mention those that already are in the roots, like all the aboriginal people. Why haven't they evolved? Why haven't they created computers, planes, and televisions and cell phones? They live in the same world, and yet they have brilliant minds among them for sure. They're not stupid people, and yet they keep living the same life they lived 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. There are fewer and fewer, but they still exist. In fact, there are still communities in the Amazon, for instance, that never seen a modern human being, although all the efforts that have been done, passing helicopters above their populations and filming, and even the government that somehow is part of the agenda have to forbid that movement because they're starting to have tourism, just people paying lots amounts of money to try and see and be the first ones to detect a new tribe. And there was some footage of that
I mean,
revealed
I
somewhere.
was in Belize recently, and like we stopped and hung out and did some tours with this Mayan tribe that spoke English, but they also spoke Chichen, like their native language, but they had like 2 or 3 solar panels in their village, and that those would charge their cell phone, and there would be only like maybe 5 cell phones in the whole entire 1,000 people community, and they would use those cell phones to like set up tours for their pyramids or their whatever. And then they almost like collectively would use that money to pay the taxes on the land to the government so that they could continue to exist there. That's like all the other than that, they didn't care about what else they had probably like 5 or 6 cars or trucks that everybody kind of communally shared. And I ate dinner in one of the guys' houses, and he was explaining to me how when it's time, like his son's 21 years old, the village is about to build him a house. Like they all just pitch in, and you know, anyway, it was really bizarre how it works, but they don't have any desire to be like the rest of us. Like they just
Right.
want, they have to be like they have to get in as much as they can like us in order to pay to be able to live in that area
In their
still,
own land, they have to pay
in
to
their
live
own
on their
land.
own
Yeah,
land.
they have to be able to do that. And so they've figured out a way to do that, but beyond that, they don't need what we're selling. So it's really interesting.
And I don't think that we are happier than them because it's
No,
all a matter
definitely
of perspective. It's all a matter of perspective. They have the riches of the land. They use the land to make their own money from tourism, from what I understood, right?
yeah. I mean, they have their own textiles. Their everything is made. Everything that they eat is either a chicken that they killed or like a beet that they grew out of their own garden or whatever. I mean, they're in a tropical Belize is, right next to Mexico. It's like they can grow food year round.
But I would love that, but only after the reset. Until the reset,
Yeah.
I would keep what I have now. Little it must be, uh, but it's a choice, and if they have the opportunity to follow it, I think it's what they want. I think it's amazing that they can live, and I still think it's stupid to have to pay for what it's their land, and but okay,
Yep.
taxes, right?
Yep.
We work and give the money to something else, but I think that this all these movements that we are seeing of bunker building and
Yeah, the dumbs.
and spaceship building like Bezos that has a cave on one side and 1 mile straight line on the other side. He has a launching pad with a rocket that can keep him and his family for a week or so in space. Uh, what what they know? What is that they know that we don't? Right? It's weird because it's these people like their money and then they don't spend it uh, without thought. So they do think they don't know something that we don't.
Yeah.
But then you see large amounts of money being spent like the straight line city in the Sahara,
Oh yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah.
right?
Or even these smart cities that they're trying to
A,
um
a
trying to
city a
engineer.
city where no one works but everyone receives money. A city that is
Yeah.
completely controlled by AI. The
That
transportations
straight
are
line city
free.
to me looks like the worst idea ever. I mean, it's
Well, they must know something. And Africa has been spared for most of the catastrophes, so
that's
I
true.
don't know. They may know something that we don't. But still, it's all based on technology, and if the sun is the trigger, all that technologies stop working. So it doesn't make much sense to spend that amount of money in something. If they know something, I don't know. It's confusing. It's very confusing what they're doing.
Yeah, man, I
Oh,
think right now we're just kind of floating in the eye of a hurricane, the calm before a storm, another storm.
yes. It depends. Sometimes it seems that it's around the corner, and other times it seems that it's still decades
Yeah,
away.
right.
So sometimes we look into their attempts that look like almost desperate. For instance, for me, it all started with those amazing pilots that managed to do an amazing curve and hit those certain towers. Uh,
Mm.
that even experienced airline pilots said it was virtually impossible to do with that plane. But those fellows had, I think, 2 hours of flight lessons with a company
Right.
of
Didn't even know how to land at that point.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but thank God that one of the passports landed on the rooftop of the building next door, and it was not even cinched. It was in
Right.
perfect condition, right? So we are very lucky to at least know who did it. We don't not sure why, but they did it. Uh, so they start taking our liberties there. They start
Yeah.
tightening their control with that
And
excuse.
that's the day that you had to have a passport to go everywhere. We used to before that, we used to could go to Canada and Mexico without passports. Like when in the US. And then that's the day where security changed forever at the airports and everything got stricter and they started putting a lockdown on your like a lot more restrictions on travel happened and then they've just continued. So travel while you can.
Yeah. You travel a lot. You still have to pass through those gates that are electromagnetic charge.
Um, I don't because I'm a flight attendant, so I have a separate door that I have to go to. We don't have to do that, but other people do. Yeah.
That always scared me. I don't like planes, so I did flew once above the river Tagus in a Cessna
Mm.
with a flight teacher. He gave me the controls. I turned around above the bridge that is exactly as your San Francisco bridge, the
Uh-huh.
metallic one. I turned around the craft, and then he landed. Of course, I just turned it around, and at least now I know that I can steal a plane as a necessity.
Yeah.
But that's my flight experience. I like the sea. I prefer boats. So if I have to go somewhere, I do by driving or by boat. I don't fly. I think because on a boat, if something happens, at least I can swim, so I have a chance.
Yeah.
I might die trying, but at least I have a chance. Since I cannot fly in a plane, I have no escape.
Yeah. The plane's pretty much yeah.
In
That's it.
fact, even people that do parachuting, I think it's an amazing act of either courage or stupidity
Yep.
because parachutes can fail. It all goes chords. If
I would
something
never.
goes wrong, it's okay. So
I
it's
would
one of those
never.
things. Although I do like, for instance, doing rappel. I do like it. Bungee jumping. I
You
also
bungee
like it
jumped? I would not
if
bungee jump. What if that snapped?
you're on top of water. Okay, so it's even it snaps, it slows you somewhat. But I prefer rappel to bungee jumping. Rappel is much. You can have both of the two worlds because you'll lose the cable and you control your speed and you control how much you go down from its turn.
Right.
Unless you
Yeah. Yeah.
even if you're doing like in a Australian way that is facing with the body facing down and you run through the wall. So it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun.
I'll take your word for it.
No, I only did it once, uh, but it's fun. Uh, but going back to the subject, I think that the measures they're taking, and now this last one that when they simulated a closed planet at will, because they decided to shut everything down
Yeah.
and saw if people would comply as they
And
are
they
now.
did. They really did comply
And
more than
people
I thought.
did comply, yes. I still seen people that are
Still complying. Yeah.
disguised, let's say it this way, disguised in the street,
Yes. In their own cars by themselves.
in their own
Still.
cars with the windows closed, which is fascinating. I have
Uh-huh.
a friend that says this, at least we now know who they are. They are identifying themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and there's a lot of them. But uh, the problem is, uh, like I was saying that to my father, commenting one of those people that are in the mass, like in carnival, and he's saying, okay, but the people may have a contagious disease, and that's why he's using that in his face. So now you're not only showing the possibility of being, uh, I don't like the word, but an idiot. You are also making other people fear you because you might have something contagious.
Right. Yeah. It's
And so I don't know.
at this point I'm just like, good luck to you.
Sure, because they might be right in the end.
Sure. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like
hey, I guess they're
it's like Rowan Atkinson in his sketch of Hell when he's calling the people and call the murderers, the rapers, the thieves, and then he says, and now the Christians. I'm sorry, but the Jews were right. So so all the Christians end up in hell too. So it might be that scenario. I doubt it. It is possible. Who knows? Who knows? But
that's
all this control, what is its purpose? Why? Why are they
yeah.
why are they limiting more and more our movements now with this 15-minute cities? or
They're
blocks.
flexing they're flexing that we're slaves, you know. They're like,
They
hey,
want to take us our cars. They want to take us our decision of where to go, because people that want self-driving cars are forgetting that we have self-driving cars since the 18th century. It's called a taxi. So we don't need self-driving cars. We never needed. It's stupid to have a self-driving car, because if I
yeah.
don't want to drive, I take public transport, or I catch a cab, or those companies that now have an application and
I
you
mean, and
call
I can just see like being in a car and being like, okay, we're gonna go to this address, and it's like that's a restricted
it.
address.
That
No,
exactly. You don't
no,
have access. You don't have credits. Your
nope,
social
no, yep,
credits
yep,
don't
nope,
allow
yep.
you to go that far.
Cannot go there today. Not today.
I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry, but you cannot. So
Not for you. So that's
Uh,
fun.
but people are following this thing because it all looks to be very positive in at first glance. Like the 15-minute cities seem to be very positive because it will increase the movement into the local stores. It will increase your health because you'll be walking more or using your bicycle more. But people are forgetting that those 15-minute cities can, without further notice, be closed, because it's written there in the plan that describes them. They can be closed without any further notice, previous notice, and people are locked on those 3 or 4 blocks of the city. They can't go anywhere else. And then the situation is described with the cars. Then you have the situation that scientifically it it pollutes 70% more to create an electric car than to create a normal car, and
Right.
that means that the normal car can make 300,000 kilometers or 100 198 mile, 1,000 miles without polluting more than an electric car would pollute just by making it. And I'm not even
Right,
saying
with
what
the lithium and the cobalt and all the things that go into the battery and
exactly.
like the resources that are used to make that.
But imagine the crash of the economy, for instance. We are nearing the timeline because, for instance, in Europe, England, Portugal, and many other European countries, if not all, will forbid the selling of uh,
Gas
uh,
cars.
gas cars and diesel cars in 2030. In 2025, if the agenda is followed, they will be forbidden to go around within cities. Those major cities will be non fossil fuel cars areas. So only electric cars, for instance, those companies from the apps on the phone are now saying that they will only accept electric cars from 2025 on. So what will happen to the economy when we have thousands and thousands, dozens of thousands of trucks making all the movimentation of goods for the stores,
Yeah, what are
supermarkets?
they going to make an exception for those trucks?
They have to make it because it doesn't make any sense. And what will happen to the cars? Because the drop of the car will drop to nothing. So the market will be flooded with fossil fuel cars that no one wants. It's a complete crash of the economy on this regard. And at the same time, they are increasing taxes on houses. For instance, I just heard the news last week that someone that is paying 150,000 euros loan for a house will
Mhm.
have an increase of almost 200 euros per month because of some kind of disagreement that is happening on Europe and Eastern Europe. Uh, for
Well, you
instance,
will own nothing and be happy.
and be happy.
You
Exactly.
will own nothing and be happy. That's what is happening.
That's what I think, because they have to crash it completely in order to implement a new system. Because no one will accept not having physical money without it becoming worthless, basically. So first of all, they have to destroy everything in order to build on top of it, as they always done. So I think all of these are small pieces that, when placed together, think they are going to converge in somewhere in the future. Where, when, who knows? They know. I don't know if they are planning this for 10, 20, 40 years. What I can tell you is that I read Agenda 21.
Yeah.
Then it was replaced by Agenda 23. And curiously enough, you have to pay almost 330 euros to read the Agenda 21 on the internet. So they say that everyone can read it, but everyone can read it after they pay those 300, because it's a very thick thing full of ideas.
You don't think anybody's like leaked that for free yet?
I don't know. It's been a few years now, but I don't know. What I know is that, for instance, in Portugal, that is a Masonic country, ever was. It was built for the Masonics. It was created by the Masonics. In here, we signed nearly all the town halls. I don't know how you call them there. It's the city halls. The politicians that control an area. Let's put it this way, or a city. So the Agenda 21 and the Agenda 2030 was signed by all of those politicians. So that's why we are seeing so many changes in our cities. Now we are limiting speeds in the roads dramatically. We are increasing the control of the movements by those cameras. We used to have cameras on the ground that could only see if the car was alone on the road and speeding. Now they place them well high and they control all the lanes at the same time with one camera for each lane. They reduce the speed even further. So you now have places where you can't go more than 20 kilometers an hour. So divide that in miles and you get, it's 1.6. So 32, no, it's on the contrary. I have to divide it.
Like 30 miles an hour?
No, much less. It's less than its walking pace.
Ugh.
So a human can do about 7 kilometers an hour. Okay. So we are putting the cars doing fast walking, about 7 kilometers an hour. Running, 14, 16, 17 kilometers an hour. A bicycle can do 30, 40 kilometers an hour. And they are forcing the cars to be moving in the city at 20 in they now call it the coexistent areas, because they want to bring the children back into the streets to play. So it's a coexistent area where all things converge, like cars, bicycles, children playing ball, all at the same time within a city where people just want to go from A to B and get there on time. So it's completely, it's all.
I wonder if it'll backlash where people will move out of the cities.
No, because people are appreciating this. People are thinking these are good things.
Yeah, that's true. I never underestimate how much idiots people are. Actually,
it's ecological. It's ecological because people have a notion of ecology that it's not real. People still think CO2 is a bad thing. Because of all the chemicals that we should ban, we are focusing on the one that we make.
Yeah. And the one that feeds plant life.
So when all the cars are stopped making CO2, what will do next? Stop us from breeding? Because we are then.
Well, I mean, they do already talk about that with cattle, like destroy the cattle for the methane they produce and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
but methane is a problem because they concentrate the cows in places where the earth has no ability to absorb the amount of
dung.
Okay, dung. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
almost saying something I shouldn't. that falls down, and then they pay. Because, for instance, in the United States, there is a limit to the amount of money that you can pay, you pay on a fine. And these companies are making 100 times that value per day. So they don't mind paying the bill, or what do you say it,
the,
the ticket,
the
or
ticket.
the punishment. I don't know how to say it. They don't mind paying it because they are making 10 times, 100 times that money a day. So they don't mind paying that money to the APA or whatever. So, for instance, you go to the Azores. I'm sure you went there as a flight attendant.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. If you go to the Azores, you will see that it's a cow country, but you don't see one single cow locked. They roam the country. They are bring to take the milk, and they are set free again into the pastures. You don't see them locked in one place or a cement place where they do their
Right,
dunging,
right.
and then all that dunging is placed on and supposedly controlled the transformation unit that absorbs the methane and all the health problems that thing can create by its decomposition, its smell, whatever. You don't see that because all the cows are free. They are all in the pasture. In here where I live, you have people creating the Lusitan horse. That is one of the most recognized horse breeds in the world. One of the most powerful horses. It's the Lusitano.
Okay.
You have the cows, you have the sheep, but you rarely see a place where the cows are locked. They're all in pastures. So they're fertilizing the field. Then that fertilizer is used for. Then comes the tractor. It mingles all that with the grass. It
Right.
makes the fertilizing for the next crop and so on. It's a natural fertilizing process. And in America, what I saw in documentaries and more than perhaps 15 years ago is that the cows are bred in places with no conditions whatsoever for any kind of human animal. So,
Yeah. But yeah, our dairies are pretty grim,
so,
our
so
feed yards and stuff like that.
and
Not
those are not sustainable places. I understand that, but to make that global, it's not a reality. And, and I'm sorry, I cut you down.
I mean, I don't know. My dad has like 30 cows or something, and he always keeps around that many, and he grows his own meat or whatever. But like he has like 18 acres that he just runs them on, and they're pretty good. But I'm pretty sure he loses money every year having them. Like they don't pay for themselves in any kind of way. The amount of feed and the amount of just the upkeep of irrigating the land and do whatever it is he has to do to get them all. I mean, so they've made it to where there's no profit in it at all. Like he just does it because he like loves cows, and it's like his, they're like pets to him, and he just he's been doing
Sure.
it his whole life kind of
At
thing.
least
So,
he knows what he's eating, right?
and he knows what he's eating, and he's always big on that whole, like, if I'm gonna eat a hamburger, I know that it's got one cow in it, not like 30 cows, different meat
Exactly.
from 30 different cows. He likes to be like eating one animal in his meat.
And
And
has he been contacted by the government already? Because I've seen a lot of reports from the United States of cow breeders that are being arrested. No, well, not arrested. How do you say
no,
it?
I don't. He doesn't do it commercially. He just does it for
No,
himself.
no, they are going from farm to farm, forcing the breeders or the animal owners to put the very things on the cows that they put on the people,
Oh yeah.
and they are shutting the farms down. And if you've seen Clarkson Farm, it's a very famous program on Amazon.
Mm.
I'm not sure you have seen it. He shows what is being done to the farmers in England. So they are making the farmers produce much less. They are increasing the costs for the farmers.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what's also really interesting in regards to that, because like I see exactly where you're going with that. But my friend, we just went on a trip to St. Louis, and she got a tick, and then she like she got bit by a tick, and she was able to get it out and then like put it in a little container or whatever and go take it to the lab to get tested. And it came back with some kind of, it tested positive for this thing that makes you allergic to meat. So if you're bitten by this tick, it's called the Lone Star tick, which I never even had heard of. And it's kind of interesting because that's like what Texas is, the Lone Star state. And this wasn't even in Texas. This was in Missouri where she got this tick. But anyway, supposedly one of the pathogens that it can spread to you, this particular tick, is the ability to make a person allergic to red meat.
So
And I'm
it's
like,
not
that seems
natural.
pretty engineered,
Not natural for sure.
not natural. Yeah.
The plot thickens.
The plot even thickens with that. Right. Yeah. And I was like, oh, really? Now that's super interesting. Had not heard of that till then. So yeah.
And have you seen the last parade, the Pride parade? Have you seen who they were making the homage to?
Mm-mm.
Lockheed Martin,
Oh, interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So one of the finances of the movement received an honor parade, but a gigantic parade with thousands of people, impressive, with all banners of Lockheed Martin. So I don't know if people blind. That's my question. Is people blind, deaf, or dumb? Because it's not take much for someone to understand that something is not right. That
Yeah.
politicians all
There's
have the same. The money came from the same sort, no matter who they are. For instance, I see a lot of movement of Twitter now supporting uh, RFK. So
right.
I admire RFK work until the point where I saw that he exposed priceless data. He did. He helped a lot of people, but he also has an agenda. And his agenda is not healthy for us.
But that's
So
the thing is like anybody who's running is going to be some
they
kind
have the same money. The source of the
of
money is all the
yeah.
same. All the candidates have the same financial support. So
Yeah.
you
I mean,
cannot trust any
I just
politician.
tell everybody, I'm like, I don't vote. I'm sorry, everybody
I
hates me
don't.
for that, but it's because it's like it's the left and the right wing of the same bird, and it's just like I just don't recognize. Yeah, I know. I'm like I understand that I'm an anarchist and that nobody else can be an anarchist because we're not ready for it. Blah 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 blah, whatever. But I just think that I I don't know where like this like back to the Archons or whatever. Like this is they're just a giant puppet head for some massive control system that I don't want to be a part of.
So many nets. There are so many nets right now.
Yeah.
And I see people telling me, no, people are getting aware. There's a lot of people getting aware. Okay, they are getting aware of a very small part of the problem, and they are focusing on it, and they cannot see anything else. So it's all a net, be it the woke movement, be it uh, people going to universities and after the first semester, all they can say is toxic and racism. And
Mm,
so, if you want to stop a problem, stop mentioning it. Start behaving like it doesn't exist and treat everyone equal. You don't need to be constantly saying that this happened. Just stop it.
I
Because
agree.
the more you speak, now you have uh, kindergarten children once a week receiving a story from a drag queen in full garment. Why? why are we sexualizing children? Why are we saying to a 5-year-old that if he doesn't want to be a boy, he can be a girl? It doesn't make any sense. Sorry, it makes all the sense.
I was
It
gonna
makes
say
all the
it
sense.
makes sense to me. Like,
It
yeah,
makes all the sense because it's, for instance, now a paper came out showing that all the children that make the trans treatment at a younger age, when they reach maturity, they are completely infertile. So it's even if they regret it, it's completely irreversible. They cannot procreate. So another population control movement.
I mean, I think the saddest thing about doing that to a person that's really young too is that, like, you know, one, they'll never experience any kind of pleasure. Two, like we have no idea what that's going to do to lifespan. Like, you know, in terms of like basically you're doing chemical castrations, and like you're gonna that like we don't know what that's gonna do to your hormone levels, and like how that'll affect your osteoporosis, like your bone density, your longevity in general. I think is probably very likely to be affected, and that's a lot for a person underage to even have a concept of yet.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And look, I'm all for each one to be whatever they want to be. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't care. Each one to each one its own. What I don't agree with is the imposing of that condition. It's almost like you, whatever channel you put on, whatever show you see, whatever movie you see, all you see is forced diversity, stupidly forced diversity.
Hmm.
It is repetition of what was and transform what they wanted to be. There is no new creation. There is no imagination. There is no talent in these new
But
writers.
you know, I feel like that's what's going on with everything, and is like, if you just sit back and watch, we have a huge agenda being pushed, like with everything. Every movie, everything's so calculated in terms of, like you said, like the whatever they're pushing it to a place where if you haven't started to, like, I don't know, I for my own self, this is just in my world. Um, I don't really watch TV that much anymore, or movies. I research, I get online, I look up stuff, I watch YouTube videos a lot, and I mean, but I'm always trying to use what general knowledge we have together to try to, before it's not here anymore, in case that ever happens one day, to try to like figure out as much as I can. And but I feel like if people haven't yet, they need to stop trying to get just vegging out and being entertained, and use the time they have with the internet left. Like, maybe we have forever, maybe we don't, but use the time that we do have to better yourself and learn more, you know. And I think that I've seen a shift of that within my own friends, though. And a lot of people, it's uh not everybody is just vegging out and just literally being entertained by somebody else's agenda anymore. I think a lot of people really are using their free time to you know, learn about anything.
Consider yourself lucky, because what I see is more and more people without any type of curiosity. They just follow trend. They don't have a long time. How do you say it? Long attention span. It's being
Yeah,
reduced. When you reach the end of the sentence, the people already don't know what
like
the
for
subject
example,
was.
right now, our attention span, like my average video gets between like 18 to 21 minute views. Like, if somebody's already been with us for an hour and 45 minutes or however long we've been going, um there's going to be, like, even if I have 1,000 views on this, we're going to get maybe 30 people that make it to the end. If you made it this far, put a comment, by the way, because let's just see if like how many people actually make it to the end. All right, so
Okay.
if we want to test out attention spans, it's like it's not so amazing.
Prove her wrong, okay? Prove her
Yeah,
wrong.
prove me wrong. Let's see. Write a comment if you it doesn't matter if you're just like you can write like yo. That's it. I don't care. Just like write a comment that you actually made it this far because that would be
No cheating, no tuning at this point and writing.
right. That's funny. But yeah, no, I mean like the whole fast food culture of like TikTok, YouTube shorts, like, Instagram reel, like only explain everything to me in 30 seconds. That
No,
it's
it's the drug of the moment. It's dopamine. It's pleasure. I've seen it. Pleasure, 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 pleasure. It's all dopamine, 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 and all that in 50 seconds package. So
yeah.
people stop. Look, as we are saying, our brain is some sort of a computer, and and it's programmable, and it's constantly reprogramming itself. So whatever we do ends up reflecting in our capability or abilities. For instance, people are normally write with the right hand or they write with the left hand. But if they have a problem and they broke one arm, for instance, and it's the arm which they use, they then are forced to use the other arm, and they suddenly discover that in very little time, the other arm starts being able to do the things that they did with the other arm that they never knew they could do
Hmm.
with the wrong arm. So that's why I always train myself to do everything with both hands. Because I play racquetball with two hands, I play ping pong with two hands, with one racket in each hand. I try to write with both hands because it's all a matter of programming. And the more synapses you create in your brain, you're not going to get more intelligent, but you'll be able to use those synapses to do more thinking or more calculation, whatever you want to call it. It's better more than less, believe me. So
Yeah.
in synapse, the more you have it, the more able you'll be to digest material. So we are all, even this is a form of conditioning that it's not a system that does it to us. It's we do it to ourselves because we concentrate, like we were saying before, in one sense, like the sight, and we neglect hearing, and we neglect smelling, and we neglect taste, and and all this combined with the massive, massive agenda that we're talking about, with this layer after layer after layer after layer, that combines all to reduce humans to a physical form. And and even those that have a spiritual need end up in the nets of religions, of spiritual groups, of cults. And although it might work, because the system of belief, you can program yourself. For instance, if there are most people that go to a Catholic um, ceremonies uh, have reported, even when they are controlled with machines and control with the ECG machines and so on, they do experience something, but they experience it because they believe in the place where they are, and that brings good things to them. That's how miracles happen, for instance. It's all self-actuation. And self-actuation does not depend on what we consider to be good or evil. Self That's why we see so many evil people succeeding in the world, because there is no tribunal there is no math header weighing what you did good and what you did right, because we
Right.
don't know what is good and what is wrong,
Yeah,
right?
that's why psychopaths rule the world.
So it's all a matter of what you believe in, and and I don't believe in good and evil. I believe in morality, because good and evil is based only and only on culture and on laws.
Yeah.
And morality is based on what you think you should and shouldn't do, what is allowed and what is not allowed, right? You don't slap your father on the face. You know it's not correct, right? You don't assault another person because you're taking his own property. It's a sense of morality that intermingles with the law and with culture. But there are things that are not part of, that did not mingle and that we know it's correct or it's not correct. So it does not affect our success. It's not a matter of karma, because karma is based on self-activation, and that self-activation is responsible for our being depressed or happy, age or not age, because if you include everything in self-activation, you will understand that you are in control of your body, and it's not your body that is controlling your life. And it's saying you can do this or you cannot do that. It's you who decide. And if you can't do it at first, it's because your body is not used to do it. So you have to try it, and you'll end up doing it. That's why right-handed people ended up writing with the left hand. Or, for instance, one of the things that I think is more difficult for me to learn, was to brush your teeth with the wrong hand.
I'm gonna start doing that.
I
I
don't
used
know
to do that
why.
a lot. I would put like my right eye with my right hand and my left eye with my left. I would try to like do. I tried to do everything both. And for at one point, I did get pretty ambidextrous. Like I got to where I was very good at both, and I somehow I just sort of dropped that and went back to my right hand only. But you're reminding me I need to try to do any task I can with my left hand to kind of work those
Condition
synapses.
ourselves.
Yeah.
You drive, don't you?
Yep.
So when you're driving, are you thinking, I have to move my right feet to the middle pedal to brake? I have to depress the left pedal for those who have manual, I have to depress the right pedal before I shift. It's all a programming.
Yeah, it is.
You are doing so many things at the same time, like looking at the other car, seeing what you have to move, pressing the pedal, making putting the
Yeah,
car
it's
in gear.
so automatic that yeah.
If you put all those things that you are doing at the same time in something that you are not used to do, like let's imagine a ridiculous situation like you are drinking coffee at the same time that you are playing darts and catching balls, for instance. It's something that you are not used to do, and first thing will happen is you're going to get the ball in your face. You will drop the dart in your hand because you are going to eat, and then you don't know what to do. So it's all a learning process, and our body is capable. This suit is capable of learning whatever we teach it. So you can put a 70-year-old person doing burpees if you want. He just has to keep doing it and stop thinking that he has 70 years old. That's what I see with old people. Why don't you do that? Oh, because I'm old. No, you don't do it because you don't do it.
Right.
You don't need to do it correctly the first time. You just need to keep doing it until you do it, and your body will do it. Right? That's why you see people like I know most of it is doing by doubles, but for instance, how much longer will Liam Neeson be doing movies where he fights like
The bad
he's
guy.
not fighting any of those scenes, but he's running on those scenes. Like Stallone has, I don't know, 75, 76 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last Expendables, he made a scene on one cut where he ran at full throttle for 40 seconds or whatever, and he's almost 80 years old. So it's all a matter of what you believe you can do. It's not a matter of what you can do actually.
That's true.
I don't know.
I don't either. All right, Ricardo, let's sign off for the people. So tell people where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me at Ricardo Calvário 1 on Twitter. It's History, Myths, and Legends on YouTube.
History, Myths, and Legends on YouTube.
On YouTube, it's History, Myths, and Legends again on Rumble, but those are not my videos, but the videos that YouTube banned me from having on YouTube.
Right. So you upload a lot of obscure videos. You're also, I would consider you an archivist. So
exactly. So I'm uploading all my videos from my database, not created by me, but from my database, onto Rumble under the same name, History Myths and Legends. I have my texts on Medium. It's Medium, and it's Ricardo Calvário on Medium.
And I'll put all these links underneath.
But you'll find all these combined on Twitter. So Twitter, perhaps it's the easiest place for you to find all of this. And also, if I'm trying to build a tour on Portugal, I don't know how long it will take me to make it, but it's all a matter of how many people are interested. So if you are interested in making a tour on Portugal and mainly on Alentejo to see the megalithics, on Tomar to see the masons, on Sintra that you will be able to see things that guides won't show you, like you will see on my video that's called Places of Power and Places of Magic. The Sintra is that old mountain that was completely built from the ground up from the 1960s. There was not a single tree in there, not one tree. They built everything from the trees, the animals, the palaces. They refurbished the whole mountain to transform a place of power into a place of magic for their own purposes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. The main one will be Quinta da Regaleira, where we have the shaft, we have the underground passages, where it happens the same of those guys in the cave that you spoke of, because they go down the initiation shaft, and then they cross the underworld through the gates, and they emerge through the water into the light again on the other side, very much like in the temple of not the temple of the Sphinx, but you know this better than I do. It's the temple on Giza, the one it's stone that has no markings whatsoever. It's Osiris temple.
Oh, the Osiris, yeah, the Osiris shaft.
So it's the same thing. You enter by a tunnel, by a pit. You go through the underworld, and then you emerge through the water into the light. It's like a birth. So it's the same thing. The water's birth, and you came out. So it's the same thing. You have that on Sintra. So if people is interested, do contact me on Twitter.
And I'll definitely come to Portugal one day and use you as my tour guide to show me how to do.
Sure. So when I have enough number of people, I'll then make it into motion.
So, yeah, very cool.
I have no more to promote for myself.
Okay, well then that's so great. Well, thank you so much, Ricardo. I love having you on. I will try to have you on again like every year because you're awesome.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine, truly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.